This video was made possible by viewers like you over on Patreon. Check out the link in the description to hear how you can help make shows like this be even more amazing. This video was also brought to you by Booksu. Check out the link in the description and use the code Gaijin15 to get $15 off your traditional Japanese biteables. Hey everyone, Gaijin Goombah here, and welcome back to another episode with Samurai. Man, it's been a hot minute since we've done one of these, huh?
Dude, the last one we did was 4 months ago, and we've only ever done 3 in total. We got a lot of catching up to do when it comes to breaking down samurai and popular culture.
Which is why I'm really glad patrons this month decided it's high time to bring back our mission of Mononofu analysis with a good hard look at my personal introduction to samurai as a kid, Yamato Man from Mega Man 6. And Battle Network, I suppose, I just never played that game. Now, some of you longtime viewers may be saying, Gaijin, didn't you cover Yamato Man like a long time ago? And that would be correct. 9 years ago, exactly. It's been a while, and I'm sure there have been a lot of people that haven't seen that video yet. Plus, that particular video was a quick look at all 6 of the Robot Masters of the game. This time, I want to take a really detailed look into Yamato Man, his stage, the stage enemies, and everything else I can find that proves or disproves just how historically samurai Yamato Man is. So, without further ado, Dude, why are you eating? We just got started filming!
Whatever, man, we can keep going. Oh, by the way, your Booksu came in.
Ah, apparently what's left of it, you freaking hog. Thankfully, Booksu sent me their starter box to show off, Seasons of Japan, which in my honest opinion has been my favorite one due to just the sheer amount of variety this box has. While most other boxes have themes of seasons and celebrations, this one drops snacks from Hokkaido all the way to Okinawa. But for my top 3 pick of the box, man, you can't go wrong with Tsukisamu Anpan. Sweetbread stuffed with anko, but this time around, instead of it being bread, it's a straight up brownie. And wash that down with Ashigata green tea grown near Mount Hakone. Hot or cold, it's some of the best drink you can put in your body. Now, my bias snack, of course, is Don Don Yaki with its tangy, bittersweet taste of summer and memories of taiko drums. And finally, bro, I love the lemony tang of yuzu. And I love nothing more in this box than the yuzu sake candy by Booksu and Daimonji. Yeah, yuzu sake candy. But don't think food's all you get. This sucker also has an entire section devoted to explaining what makes the seasonal celebrations in Japan so unique and... this is new. Booksu Boutique, snacks, tea, and lifestyle goods? Wait, washi paper socks and a freaking samurai? Okay, this is new. Sorry, just got completely distracted there for a second. Well, if you want to sink your teeth into some traditional snacks you're not going to find in stores, hit up my link in the description and use the code Gaijin15 to get $15 off your order. And I guess check out BooksuBoutique.com to check out their extensive list of extremely traditional house goods.
So come take a literal bite out of Japan's culture with Booksu.
Okay, sorry, just coming down off of that whiplash. Anyway.
You know, it really seems like Yamato Man should have been the very first candidate for the sub-series we've been doing. I mean, just look at the guy. Robot Masters don't get much more weeb than this. Except for maybe Shadow Man, who we've already proved is the most ninja of all robots in video games.
True, but I guess I felt like it was kinda obvious, you know? Like, the samurai-looking Robot Master is a samurai. Just kinda came to my own conclusion a long time ago and put it out of my head. But after sitting down with this character, his stage, and everything in between, I was actually amazed at just how hard Capcom went with Yamato Man's theming with samurai. Like, let me start off with one of the most seemingly tiny details with the stage and how it just snowballs into everything samurai. This little guy, the Kotambion. Now, in-game, they're nothing special. They fly overhead and drop a bomb. Big deal, that's not the first Mega Man game enemy to do that, and it certainly won't be the last. But the difference here is the name, Kotambion. This name comes directly from the Japanese real-life insect called katombo, a kind of crane fly that looks like a Florida-sized mosquito or a hunchback dragonfly. Now, here's the insane thing about onates and Diptera-ordered bugs in old Japan. They were hugely important and symbolic to samurai. An old name for dragonfly in Japan is katsumushi, which if you tossed a few different kanji in, sounds exactly like victory bug. And you gotta remember that Japan is a country that is nearly built off of word puns. So yeah, that by itself was appealing to Japan's warrior caste. But as anyone who watches Z Frank can attest, dragonflies are vicious little hunters. They actually calculate where their prey is going to be rather than blindly chasing behind it to intercept it. So the fact that this insect was so small but had such a tactful mind and killer instinct was the other big draw for samurai. I mean, director of programming for the Portland Japanese Garden, Akihito Nakanishi, stated that dragonflies symbolize agility, determinedness, and victory for samurai warriors, emblazing the insects on their armor and even as their decorative datemono crest. I'm telling you, Capcom's really freaking sneaky with these references.
Well then, how about one that's not so subtle? Benkei, a gatekeeper enemy that spins its limitless supply of pole arms around, blocking shots, only to launch him at the blue bomber like a freaking airplane propeller. Now, the more culturally savvy viewer may have already pieced together that this is a paper-thin reference to Saito Musahibo Benkei, a Sohei monk turned Yamabushi turned rogue warrior between 1155 and 1189. And much like Benkei in game, this dude was massive, recorded to be over 6.5 feet tall by the age of 17. Remember, this is way back in the 12th century, so for someone to be that tall at that period of time, that was massive. But most folks know him for his fated meeting with Minamoto no Yoshitsune at the Gojiro Bridge and the brawl at Kiyomizu Temple. Both encounters, Yoshitsune utterly stomped Benkei, and it was here that the Sohei warrior would abandon his quest of collecting 1,000 swords from unworthy samurai and devote his life to the man who would be called the greatest samurai of Japan, at least to some historians. So here's the funny thing. Benkei in game is a gatekeeper enemy, right? Well, Benkei of history's greatest act was doing the exact same thing. At some point, Yoshitsune was deemed a traitor by his newly shoguned brother, Yoritomo, forcing him and Benkei to flee. Yoshitsune's men eventually caught up with him, though, at Koromogawa no Tate Castle, and it was here that Yoshitsune realized he couldn't run anymore and hid himself away in the castle to commit seppuku. To prevent Yoritomo's soldiers from stopping his master, Benkei body-blocked the gate to the castle, alone. And he also instantly cut down any and all who dared to advance near him. Realizing a head-on assault was suicide, Yoritomo's men opted into raining arrows down on Benkei. By the end, this dude killed over 300 men and tanked over 3 dozen arrows as he guarded the gate. And even upon Benkei's death, this Chad died standing up. An act of defiance and toughness so insane, it got its own name of event, Benkei no Tachi Ojo. So, going back to the game, not only is Benkei acting as an extremely hardy gatekeeper, but he's also blocking Mega Man's path to his master and theoretical supreme samurai, Yamato Man. I don't know what to say. This is as one-to-one as it gets. Oh, and by the way, side tangent, you see that backpack full of weapons that Benkei keeps spinning around? Those aren't his collected weapons, because remember, he was after 1,000 swords. As a final note for Benkei's badassery, the man was a master of 7 weapons. The Masakari Axe, Kumare Rake, Nagigama Sickle, Izuchi Mallet, Nokogiri Saw, Tetsubo, and the Sohei classic, the Naginata. These are what Benkei's spinning around in game.
Again, even when the connection seems really obvious, you just get mentally curb stomped when you see just how minute but intense these connections are. But let's stop beating around the bush here, let's talk about the Bushibot himself. First off, his name.
Yeah, this is something that always kind of bugged me. He's called Yamato Man in 6, right? But in Battle Network, they changed his name to Japan Man, which, okay, I guess people couldn't get behind the word Yamato, but this not only makes his name sound even stupider, but Japan exists in the Battle Network universe called Electropia, so why change it?
I guess because your average everyday person doesn't understand just how central to Japan the word Yamato is, cause really, they might as well be the same thing. Now, despite what some may say, historians and anthropologists believe that it was the Yamato clan that moved into South and Central Japan from Korea and set up the country's first imperial court back in the Kofun period. This was the clan that founded the imperial house, wrote the Nihon Shoki, Japan's written history of origin, and proclaimed themselves as divinely charged by the kami to control the island territory, eventually pushing the Emishi people further and further north up into Hokkaido. The very identity of what we call Japan today stems from this clan, and you can see this evident in a few centralized Japaneseisms. Like, take the word Yamato Damashi for example. Originally, this was a phrase that denoted old Japanese adoptions of Chinese concepts, but eventually this word came to represent the unique nature of the Japanese perspective, particularly with samurai. From there, the term would continue to grow in association with Japan's military all the way up to the end of World War II, where afterwards it just became more of a generalized concept of Nihon Jinron nationalism. So even with just Yamato Man's name, we can see samurai connections. But how about his appearance? Well, give the guy credit, he does look like a samurai with his kabuto helmet with Fukigaishi blowbacks, Minpo face, Datemono crest, Sode shoulder guards, and Kusazuri skirt plates. But that's really only half the garb of a samurai's armor. There's no Kote armored sleeves or Sunyate shin guards. Instead, we get plate metal that looks like it belongs on Nightman more than Yamato Man. Aside from that, this guy is just decked out in purple. Now, side tangent for a moment. For whatever reason, people keep telling me that purple in Japan is a symbol of poison and death, and yeah, maybe these days it is, but purple, or as they call it, murasaki, has actually a near polar opposite meaning. This was a color that could only be worn by high-class folks. Having a direct relation with the purple Fuji Wisteria flowers, it was literally illegal for commoners to wear the color on their kimonos. Rather, it was saved for the folks directly in and under the shogunate and the emperor. Heck, even if people wanted to wear it, they probably couldn't afford it. The only way kimono cloth could be dyed with murasaki back then was to use extract from Shigusa Cromwell plants, which were extremely hard to grow, thus driving up their price. So with that hindsight, it actually makes a lot of sense for Yamato Man to be decked out in purple. It's a regal color perfect for a high-class samurai and literal boss of this stage. But there is one final thing I gotta mention with Yamato Man, and this is what makes him an absolute true-to-history samurai. His weapon.
Ah, I see. So samurai would routinely launch the tip of their spears at their enemies and then awkwardly had to go pick it up if they missed.
Okay, it's not how Yamato Man uses it, but the fact that it's his primary weapon. See, when I first heard that there was a samurai robot master in the newest iteration of my favorite game, my kid brain always wondered, where's his freaking sword? How can you be a samurai without a sword? Little did I realize that I got sucked into the Edo-originated, overhyped concept of the katana. Because prior to the Edo period, a samurai on the battlefield was not defined by the sword, but by the spear. Well, first they were defined by the bow, but after the Mongol invasions of 1274, samurai learned that they needed a more flexible weapon that was just as good offensively as defensively, mounted or on foot. And samurai found that flexibility in the yari spear.
Well, truth be told, it was actually the naginata that samurai would main, but that only lasted until the 1400s or so. See, if you thought that katana were complicated to make, yeah, imagine that process but for a freaking spear. And that was okay while the country saw relatively little conflict, but after the Onin War and the country split into dozens of micro-territories, samurai and ashigaru needed weapons and fast. So, while the naginata became more symbols of the Sohei monks and Onobugeisha, the yari became the symbol of the samurai.
But hey, just because the yari was easier to make doesn't mean it was any less simplistic than the naginata. In my research, I discovered that there were over 18 different categorizations for blades and over 5 different kinds of shafts. Yeah, 5 different classifications for what might as well be an 8-foot stick. Samurai never make things simple. Eventually, as the Tokugawa shogunate brought peace and controlled the country, the yari spear was faded out of use as it was only really effective in a big open battlefield, not so much urban law enforcement. This is where nostalgic samurai got lost in their own lore and began seeing the katana as their penultimate weapon, and why we have so many legendary samurai swords, and really not any other kinds of weapons. But for about 300 to 400 years, the spear was the weapon for the samurai, dependable in its reach and an amazing weapon for offensive and defensive capabilities.
It was also great to use as a lance on horseback for samurai too, being the only warriors allowed to have horses. You know, I've been wondering, if Yamato Man is such a solid samurai, why did they just call him Samurai Man? I mean, they had Nightman after all.
Well, because there already was a Samurai Man, featured in the Rockman Wish Upon a Star OVA.
Yo, I wanna see!
Samurai Man, crush Mega Man!
Yeah, so there you have it. I don't know about the rest of you, but from what I can see, the visual and game design of not just Yamato Man, but this entire stage really reflects samurai of history. But I don't know, what do you all think? Is Yamato Man a legit samurai? Were you surprised at all the minute connections, or do you even think they're real? Do you think there are other cultural-inspired robot masters we should look into? Let me know in the comments below, and while you do, a big thank you to my patrons for constantly supporting these videos, and for choosing a nice nostalgic topic I could really tear into. And a massive thank you to Bulksu for continuing to also support these edutainment videos. If you want to take a literal bite out of Japan's culture, hit up the link in the description and use the code Gaijin15 to get $15 off your purchase. We got a lot more culture and games videos coming your way. Maybe a little sprinkle of Pokemon Violet and Scarlet, maybe some more Warhammer, or maybe some Ocarina of Time. I found an interesting little French tidbit I think everyone's overlooked, myself included. So, if that sounds good to you, sub up, get notified, check back to the main channel every other week, and until next time everyone, this is Gaijin Goombah, signing out.